Former Liberal Party MP Craig Kelly has been criticised by the SBS for his comments after the announcement by major Australian supermarket Coles that they'll begin selling meat products from cattle farms using the BOVAER supplement in their feed. SBS claimed that Kelly's comments were false and not accurate. But are they really false? Kelly is quoted as saying that BOVAER was unapproved and that it was only being administered because of the net zero insanity in the belief that if we stop cows from farting, we'll avoid bad weather. SBS have claimed that Craig Kelly is a person who's prone to being controversial in his comments, and that's mainstream government-funded journalistic jargon for speaking common sense. Firstly, where is the proven evidence that the increasing numbers of cattle is increasing planetary methane levels to a point that it's having an adverse effect on the climate? And where can it be shown that reducing the number of times cows fart will actually have an impact on the climate? Well, spoiler alert, there is none. It's all assumptions and hypothesis. In fact, there's not a single scientific report that conclusively shows that climate change is the result of anthropogenic causes, and that includes the number of cattle we have to feed us. Kelly's claims are indeed accurate, that the use by farmers of BOVAER is all about the use of a thoroughly untested chemical to prevent a problem that's not really a problem. Kelly's claims that BOVAER has not been approved is also accurate, because while the use of BOVAER has been sanctioned by some government authorities, when you see the considerable number of online statements from cattle and dairy farmers, both here in Australia and overseas, that are not approving the use of BOVAER as a feed supplement, Kelly is quite right to assert it's not approved. In fact, a great many farmers are going to great lengths to distance themselves from the chemical and its use. So whilst it might have government approval, it certainly doesn't have the approval from a great many of the men and women on the land. Furthermore, when you look at the scientific studies that claim to confirm the safety of BOVAER for cattle and for the human consumption of beef and dairy products from cattle that have been ingesting this chemical, you can in no way assert that they are extensive or conclusive in their findings. In an article published in the Daily Mail which discusses what is BOVAER, it clearly states the following when highlighting the safety precautions that are required for the safe commercial handling of 3-NOPA. In the US, the FDA states the following in relation to the primary chemical used in BOVAER. The product is not for human use. And it further adds, I quote, "Caution should be exercised when handling this product. 3-nitrooxypropanol may damage male fertility and reproductive organs, is potentially harmful when inhaled, and is a skin and eye irritant." In the SBS article, while they make an attempt to demonstrate the safety of BOVAER thanks to considerable testing, they only highlight how little adequate testing has been done. When they quote, "BOVAER has been the subject of over 100 on-farm trials in more than 20 countries." Firstly, you cannot seriously consider 100 on-farm trials undertaken globally to be a thorough test. But more importantly, how long did these trials go for? A journal published by the European Food Safety Authority also gives no indication of the length of these so-called extensive trials and testing, and it only states 3 studies which were run at the same time, June to November 2018, in 3 different locations: Wageningen in the Netherlands, Reading in the UK, and Pennsylvania in the USA. In fact, there is no literature outlining any trial that has been conducted over several years and looks at the results of long-term use and the effects on breeding, birth rates, and other possible side effects of continual long-term use over 5 years or more. Most of the studies focus on the basic health of the beast and, of course, a reduction in the amount of methane gas. In the same publication from the European Food Safety Authority, they also state the following when reporting their finding on rats and hamsters. Based on the above, the FEEDAP panel concludes that the genotoxicity potential of 3-NOP cannot be ruled out. However, because 3-NOP was within their safe limits across all their other findings, they conclude this to be not of concern. What's alarming is that once again all these tests on both cattle and mammalians were conducted over a relatively short period of time, and no tests have been conducted with human trials and over a period of several years. All the tests' claims of safe use in no way consider the effects of long-term ingestion by cattle throughout several breeding cycles and subsequent testing of possible increased levels of chemical accumulation, possible decreases in reproductive levels, or any other intestinal tract, liver, or kidney diseases. There have been no long-term studies on rats over several breeding cycles to assess similar possible findings, and certainly no long-term human trials on the effects of long-term consumption of cattle and dairy products that have ingested BOVAER. Now, call me a skeptic or conspiracy theorist if you will. For 6 decades, I've witnessed failed, half-baked ideas established on the basis that it's good for humanity, culminating in the whole COVID fiasco. Cane toes will save our sugarcane crops. A so-called vaccine will stop you getting COVID. And now, cows farting, or burping to be precise, will save the planet from a changing climate. When making your decision as to what meat and dairy products you buy, and from where, simply ask yourself, who ultimately benefits and who is most at risk? The only factual statement made is that cows expel methane, but so do you and I. There is no evidence to link the increasing amount of methane produced from cows as being a contributing factor to the so-called climate change. And if there's no benefit to the planet, and thereby to us, then that simply leaves the company making BOVAER and all their shareholders as the beneficiary, and us as the guinea pigs while they get richer.